Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're walking right up to a really challenging edge.
hmm Where healing meets holding.
Exactly. That intense intersection of, therapeutic care and the structure of the criminal justice system
Yeah, it's possibly one of the most challenging domains a healthcare professional could even choose.
and the sources we're digging into today.
They're high-level, academic training materials, the kind of guides really designed to get nurses ready for this specific environment.
Okay.
And they live day in and day out with what's called the custody and caring paradox.
Right, that phrase again. Explain that a bit.
That constant tension, you know, between their oath to provide care, the therapeutic side,
hmm
and their role in keeping things secure, the custody part.
That dual mandate, it really defines this work, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So our mission today really is to cut through some potential confusion. We need to clearly differentiate three nursing fields that sound kind of similar.
Right. Forensic, correctional, and psychiatric mental health nursing.
Yeah, and really get a sense of the unique demands on these nurses.
And if you're listening, you need to understand that paradox right from the start. It's central.
Because we're talking about people who desperately need health support.
But their care is just fundamentally shaped, even limited, by their legal status. They are,
Mhm.
Patients and inmates at the same time.
Okay, let's unpack that. Starting with definitions seems like the best way to avoid confusion.
Good idea.
Let's start with forensic nursing, or FN. What's the core thing that makes a forensic nurse different?
The core is the legal connection. The definition is basically applying nursing science to public or legal proceedings.
Okay.
It's about mixing that biopsychosocial care, so body, mind, social context,
hmm
with investigating things like trauma, death, abuse, or, well, criminal activity itself.
So it's not just about treating someone.
No, it's also about understanding what health-related evidence can actually be used in court,
Yeah.
preserving it, collecting it.
Like evidence on the body or even psychological evidence.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with correctional nursing, CN.
Okay.
This one's really defined by where they work and the patient's legal status.
So inside prisons or jails.
Right. They're providing general health care, could be wound care, managing chronic diseases, you name it, but specifically to incarcerated people.
Got it. Location and legal status are key there.
Mhm. And then the third one is psychiatric mental health nursing, PMHN.
Which is maybe the one people are most familiar with.
Probably. It's the broader field. They address mental health needs in the general population. There isn't that inherent legal or, custodial layer that we see in the other two.
So FN, CN, PMHN, distinct roles.
Yes, but it helps to think of forensic nursing, FN, as often being an umbrella term
Ah, okay. How so?
because it really needs that integration of legal knowledge, psychiatric understanding, and medical skills.
Right.
So under that FN umbrella, you
Yeah.
find these very specialized roles, like the sexual assault nurse examiner or SAN nurse, or a nurse coroner death investigator. Correctional nurses can fall under it too. And the one we'll focus on a lot today, the forensic psychiatric nurse.
Wow. Okay, so that forensic nurse is constantly bridging these two worlds, clinical care and the legal system.
Constantly. They're not just, say, giving out medication.
They're doing more.
Much more. They might be giving expert testimony in court, consulting with lawyers or police, even helping shape policies so that, health evidence is used correctly in the justice system.
The stakes just sound incredibly high.
They are. Absolutely.
So we've defined the fields. Now let's look at who they're caring for. Why does this specific population, the incarcerated population, need such specialized care?
Well, if you look at the health profile of people in, say, Canadian federal institutions, it's pretty stark.
Stark how?
It's really a list of compounded challenges. These individuals often carry burdens from socioeconomic disadvantage, a lot of historical trauma, risk behaviors.
So specific health issues.
Oh, yeah. Really high rates of chronic illnesses, think diabetes,
Huh.
hypertension, and alarmingly high rates of infectious diseases too. HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C, much higher than the general population.
It sounds like a population whose health has been, well, largely missed or ignored by the mainstream healthcare system before they ended up incarcerated.
That is absolutely the critical context here. And the sources we looked at, they're quite direct about this.
About why?
about the systemic reasons why people struggling with untreated mental illness often break the law and end up in the justice system almost by default instead of getting into the healthcare system first.
We hear that phrase, the criminalization of mental illness. What do the sources point to as the main drivers?
It really boils down to systemic gaps. Not enough funding, especially for community mental health care.
Uh-huh.
The system's very fragmented. People fall through the cracks. And crucially, you have to remember the impact of deinstitutionalization back in the 60s and 70s.
And when they closed the large psychiatric hospitals?
Exactly. The idea was to replace them with robust community support.
Mm-hmm.
But those resources, well, they largely didn't show up at the scale needed.
And so vulnerable people ended up.
Cycling through homelessness, emergency rooms, and yes, the justice system. It became the default system for many.
But then scale of this issue today.
It's huge. You see a massive overrepresentation of individuals with mental illness in prisons, and critically, a devastating overrepresentation of indigenous people.
Which connects to?
Intergenerational trauma from colonization, ongoing systemic issues, poor social determinants of health. It's all deeply intertwined.
This really highlights the need for that specialized role we mentioned, the forensic psychiatric nurse, the FPN. This is where that legal clinical connection is sharpest, right?
Absolutely. Their day-to-day work is incredibly varied. They're gathering evidence, physical, psychological, testimonial.
While also providing care.
Yes, providing very specific therapeutic interventions, often designed to manage high-risk behaviors. They're negotiating crises, all within the constraints of a secure setting.
And their role in court. You mentioned testimony.
Right, they're indispensable there.
Mm.
An FPN might be called as a fact witness. Meaning they just describe what they saw, what they did, what they know factually. Like, I observed the patient at this time, they said this, I administered this medication.
Just the facts, almost like a human camera.
Kind of, yeah. But then they might also be called as an expert witness. And that's different. It carries enormous weight.
How so?
As an expert, they go beyond just the facts. They offer diagnostic insights, professional opinions based on their clinical assessment, analysis, stuff that directly informs the judge or jury's decisions.
Okay, and this must be where some complex legal concepts come in. The sources mention FPNs are often involved in two crucial assessments that, frankly, the public gets mixed up all the time.
Yes, absolutely. Fitness and criminal responsibility.
Yeah.
Very different things.
Can you break down that difference for us? Let's start with fitness.
Okay. Fitness to stand trial. This assessment looks at the person right now at the time of the trial. Today. Can they understand what's happening in court? Do they get the charges against them? Can they communicate with their lawyer and participate in their own defense? It's about their current mental state and capacity.
Got it. Current capacity to navigate the trial process.
Exactly.
So what's the other one? Criminal responsibility.
Right. The criminal responsibility assessment. This one determines if the person meets the criteria for being found not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder, or NCRMD.
NCRMD. We hear that acronym.
We do. And this assessment is retrospective. It looks back at the individual's state of mind at the time the crime was committed.
Ah, okay. Not now, but then.
Precisely. The FPN helps assess, was the person, at that specific moment, incapable of appreciating the nature and quality of their actions? Or were they incapable of knowing that what they were doing was wrong because of a mental disorder?
That distinction is huge. One is about now, the other is about then.
Critical distinction. And FPNs play a key role in providing the clinical information needed for both types of assessment.
That dual role again, healing someone while also gathering information for the system that's holding them. You called it the tightrope walk. It just sounds like immense pressure.
It requires incredible vigilance and really, really strong professional boundaries. You're dealing with clients who are often survivors of severe trauma themselves, who have active mental illness and also criminal histories. It's complex.
And the sources we looked at, they specifically mention relationship challenges in these forensic settings. One was this concept of othering.
Yeah, that's when staff might start to see the clients as fundamentally different from themselves, not really as people suffering, but just as offenders.
Which must make building trust really hard.
Extremely hard. It gets in the way of that therapeutic relationship you need to establish, even in a secure setting.
And does that connect to the second issue mentioned, manipulation?
It can, yeah. Well, clients might use manipulation sometimes consciously, sometimes as a symptom of their illness or desperation to test boundaries, maybe get special favors, or just disrupt things.
So the nurse needs, what, steel walls?
Not steel walls,
Right.
but very clear, consistently held Professional boundaries. The relationship has to stay therapeutic, never drift into being social or personal. That's crucial.
How difficult is that, though, to maintain genuine empathy when you're constantly on guard for manipulation?
It's incredibly tough. It takes training, self-awareness, and good support from colleagues. The key is remembering that often, even that manipulative behavior is a symptom. It stems from the trauma, the illness, the powerlessness they feel.
So separating the behavior from the person.
That's the goal. Doesn't make it easy, but it's the therapeutic stance.
And to manage all this, security awareness is obviously non-negotiable. The sources differentiate two types of security.
Right. Think of it as structure versus interaction. Static security is the physical stuff.
The walls, the locks.
Exactly. Thick walls, fences, surveillance cameras, controlled doors, the building's layout itself.
Yeah.
The fixed infrastructure.
Okay. And the other type?
Is dynamic security.
Yeah, okay.
And this is all about the staff. It's the human element.
How does that work?
It relies on staff being constantly observant, interacting with clients, assessing risk on an ongoing basis. Are there changes in mood? Signs of distress? Are people where they're supposed to be? Knowing the clients, noticing subtle shifts. It's about staff interaction being a form of security.
Active vigilance.
Absolutely. It's arguably even more important than the static stuff in preventing incidents.
So what does this mean practically day to day? The sources gave some really specific, actionable tips for nurses.
Yeah, and they really highlight that need for constant awareness. Like rule number 1, never bring anything in for a client. Never take anything out for them either.
Seems obvious, but critical.
Fundamental breach of security and boundaries. Also, never share personal information. Not about you, not about your colleagues.
Keep that professional distance.
Completely. Report any inappropriate comments, banter, or threats immediately. Don't brush it off. And maybe most importantly, always let your team know where you are, especially if you're going into an interview room alone with a client.
Communication for safety.
Vital. Knowing where your coworkers are and them knowing where you are is basic safety protocol.
The FPN role also involves dealing with specific populations within the system, right? People with unique needs.
Definitely. For example, female forensic clients. This sources know they often present with higher rates of self-harm, self-injurious behaviors.
We'll use that.
It's very frequently linked to extensive histories of trauma, often starting in childhood. So their care needs highly specialized trauma-informed approaches, not just general psychiatric care.
Makes sense. What about older clients? We don't often picture elderly people in forensic settings.
But the prison population is aging. So FPNs increasingly deal with complex chronic illnesses, palliative care needs right inside the facility, and even navigating sensitive issues around compassionate release for the terminally ill.
Wow, and other groups.
Youth obviously requires specialized developmental approaches. And culturally diverse clients, especially indigenous clients, need programming that's actually culturally safe and relevant, that acknowledges the context of colonization and systemic issues we talked about earlier. Generic programs often don't work.
It's a huge range of specialized needs.
It is.
Let's circle back for a moment to that legal concept, NCRMD, not criminally responsible due to a mental disorder.
Okay.
The sources point out it's actually really rare, like maybe 1 in 1,000 criminal cases nationally, but it gets a massive amount of public attention, often negative.
That's true. It's governed by Section 16 of Canada's Criminal Code, and when someone is found NCRMD, their fate isn't decided by the court in the same way as a conviction. It goes to a review board.
A specialized board.
Yes. And their number 1 job, their primary mandate, is public safety. That comes first.
So what can this review board decide? What are the outcomes or dispositions?
There are 3 main possibilities. 1 is an absolute discharge. That means the person is released with no conditions attached. It implies they're not considered a significant threat.
Okay, what else?
A conditional discharge. They're released into the community, but they must follow specific, strict conditions. Things like living in a certain place, reporting regularly, taking medication, abstaining from substances, staying away from victims.
So supervised release.
Essentially, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the third option is a detention order. This means the person must remain in a secure forensic psychiatric facility under the board's authority. They receive treatment, but they are not free.
And here's the kicker, right? The part that contradicts the common perception. People often think NCRMD is a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yeah, that perception is widespread.
Mm-hmm.
But the data, the legal reality, is actually the complete opposite most of the time.
How so?
Detention under a review board, following an NCRMD finding, often lasts significantly longer than the prison sentence the person would likely have received if they'd just been convicted of the same crime.
Longer than prison. Why?
Because release isn't based on a fixed sentence length. It's based entirely on ongoing risk assessment.
Hmm.
The review board won't grant even a conditional discharge unless they're satisfied. The risk to the public can be safely managed. So people can be held for many, many years under a detention order.
That really flips the script on the public narrative, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Ah,
It highlights that while treatment is happening, that custody and public safety mandate remains paramount. It's not an easy way out.
this whole deep dive, it really paints a picture of just an immense and frankly incredibly stressful scope of practice for these nurses,
Mm.
from, collecting minute forensic evidence after a traumatic event, all the way to managing complex chronic health problems inside a locked facility.
Navigating that ethical tightrope every single day.
Yeah.
And that duality, that tightrope, it really brings us to the big lingering question, doesn't it?
Which is,
Well, given what we know about the systemic failures, the gaps in mental health resources, the legacy of deinstitutionalization failures that effectively channel people with severe mental illness into the justice system instead of the healthcare system,
right.
how do we as a society really reconcile the FPN's mandate, the mandate for public safety for custody, with the ethical imperative we usually associate with nursing, pure, unadulterated therapeutic care?
That tension.
That fundamental tension, created partly by systems outside the nurse's control. How do we resolve that? That's something for all of us maybe to think about.